France. I am in Marcompole, and so for me, the easiest place to get to was Parc du Héron, and in English would be Heron Park. My name is Isabel, and I'm working on a book called The Wild Light. The Wild Light really focuses on the different animals that you can see in the nature around you. Throughout working on this book, I've learned so much about the birds and the different animals that are native to the areas that I visit. Today, I'm gonna be shooting with my Nikon D850. I've got some Sigma lenses on here, and I also have a teleconverter. So this is a pretty big camera. You can see the camera itself is about the size of my head, and then the lens is about the length of my forearm. Yeah, so there goes my lens cover. Yeah, some pretty big gear. It is a little bit heavy, so I do like to take the rest here. This also helps with tripod, but just kind of use this to stabilize. And every photographer knows that unfortunately it looks like you have horrible posture, but to me that's like the sign of an actual photographer. Amateurs will always like take pictures like this, their elbows out, but like professional, you like lean your shoulders into your body and your body becomes the tripod. So that has been a little bit different, especially with how dynamic the lighting is. I'm very oriented to fashion and editorial photos, so I'm used to making the light work for me. And I also have done many outdoor shoots when it comes to editorial, where I have to work with more dynamic lighting, but I definitely think it's very different when you can tell your model to, tilt your chin up and turn and look here and smolder and things like that. Like, you don't get that chance when you're shooting wildlife. So this project has been very, very different for me. I mean, I've loved it. I have loved learning all about the birds and the native wildlife that exists over here. And I've even learned about the different plants. Unfortunately, while being here in France, I got stung by stinging nettle, but yeah, it is quite interesting. I think the difference between the wildlife in Canada, the US, and then here in France. It is very similar to Belgium, but of course I am in an area that is close to the Belgian border. I think the main difference for the specific area that I am in, this does not apply to all of France, of course, but the specific area that I'm in is very metropolitan. And so it is very interesting for me to see like these little wildlife pockets immersed into the city. And then you would see such interesting wildlife there. I feel like you don't really expect that. Like, I feel like in metropolitan areas, before I started working on this book, I felt like if you're in the city, you see pigeons and you see rodents, and like you just, I don't know, like I feel like it's the same thing. So to me, it's very interesting that you would go to a park in the middle of the city and then you're seeing things like swans, and you're seeing herons, and you're seeing parakeets. And then you have things like that where you have police sirens and ambulance sometimes in the background. But other than that, it's just this cove of quiet in the middle of a city. So that in itself was quite an interesting thing to adjust to. Parc du Héron is very like, I would say like a pocket within the city. And so the trees kind of canopy over you and they kind of create a cove. So it is really difficult for me to get good lighting. And I don't love working with a tripod. I know that it's gonna be necessary for some shots. And actually, let me explain why, because I feel like it's a little easier to follow if I do. So your camera has something called the shutter speed. That's when you hear the click, click. There's 2 clicks when you take a picture. And what happens when you have a slow shutter speed is essentially you hear click, and then a few seconds tick by, and then you hear click. If your shutter speed is lower than what your lens can go to, so say that your lens can shoot at 100 millimeters and you set your shutter speed to 50, then the time between the clicks is so long that if you don't hold the camera perfectly steady, which you can't, you breathe, you have micro movements, the camera will capture those micro movements, and so you get a very blurry picture. So in that instance, having a tripod is good because then the camera is resting on completely stable ground. There is no micro movements from your hand, your body, your breathing, nothing like that. And so then you can get a very beautiful dynamic picture, and it will help when you have darker lighting. However, the downside is you have to put it on a tripod. And that's the part that I don't like, because I want to be on the go. I want to be on the move. I will say that I will sit around for photos. I spend about 6 to 8 hours when I go out to take pictures, taking the pictures. And so sitting and waiting is not a big deal to me, but you don't know where your subject will be, whether it's a bird all the way up in a tree or it's, I don't know, a turtle on the ground. And I do feel that using a tripod limits that flexibility, just because you would have to adjust it very quickly. And most of the wildlife, you have, I would say, anywhere from like a 5-second window to like a minute, and like a minute is stretching it. Like I would say realistically you have 5 seconds to 30 seconds to just line up, set your shot, and capture. And so it is a lot more of a challenge if you are using a tripod. It does have its uses, especially, like I said, like in low lighting. So I would like to kind of experiment more with that when I'm shooting wildlife in the evening. There are some that are only out at dawn and dusk, like the European hedgehog, which hopefully the next time I'm in France, I can kind of get a photo of. But yeah. Pardon me, also there is so much pollen. It's not as bad in this part of France as it is in Belgium. Belgium has a ton of pollen, and I swear I sneeze all day long. But I am very particular about my photos. I am somewhat of a perfectionist, and working with some of the different photographers that I have worked with, and utilizing, you know, their knowledge and the things that they taught me, and having worked in a professional environment before, I am a very big fan of making sure things are properly formatted. There are like artistic things which I think can be critiqued. You know, not every photo that I love, my viewer will love. But then there are certain things that are like the psychology of photography, making sure that the placement of things are proper. Is everything balanced? Is it color graded? There's a lot that goes into it. I think people think you just kind of like click, click, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a professional photographer. But it's like the click, click is like a third of the job. Yeah. it is very time consuming. Again, I spend 6 to 8 hours outside. It is full swing summer. So it's not as easy as click click. But it is still very fun, and I'm still very, very grateful that I get to do it. I hope you guys follow along this series. Next stop will be Belgium. And the focus for there is going to be catching the little owl. Not catching, but capturing a photo of the little owl. And I hope you guys stick around. Let me know if you guys want to see any particular animals anywhere that I'm traveling. And make sure you guys follow along. Check out my store so that you guys can order any prints, especially if I capture one of your favorite animals. And if you want to see the photos of the parakeets and other beautiful animals that I've captured here in France, again, check out my website. Make sure you follow. I'll be on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Love you.